This is the Rebel Love Show. We are a once-a-week live broadcast. Well, not live today, unfortunately, because of Google Hangouts and whatnot. But we are a once-a-week broadcast from Manchester, New Hampshire. You can find us at rebelloveshow.com, facebook.com/rebelloveshow. I am Rob Mathias.
I am Joel Valenzuela. And guess what? Today we have a very, very, very special guest. I mean, we always do. But today we got
Always a special guest.
Mattheus von Guttenberg.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, finally, after our tech issues, I'm almost out of my coffee.
Yeah, well, I got plenty here. And guess what? There's brandy in here. I planned ahead.
Yeah, I didn't plan ahead. I just have coffee. Which sucks because I like to have my coffee throughout the whole show, but yet now I'm going to be halfway through with no coffee.
Well, you can take an intermission, and Rob and I can, and Joel and I can chat, and you can go get some coffee and come back halfway through.
Yeah, we don't need you
We
anyway.
don't really need you
yeah, I
for
guess
much
I'm
of
not
it.
needed.
I mean, you can just head out at any time and come back, and it's okay.
Well,
if I left, the show would collapse upon itself with Joel at the helm over here on the computer.
yeah, well, division of labor. Anyway, anywho, I want to talk to Mathias here about some stuff.
Go for it. Go to
All right.
town. Let's talk about cryptocurrencies and how we are going to free ourselves with.
Yeah, let's talk about how
Ones
we're
and
going to
zeros.
embrace our cybernetic overlords or whatever you say.
I embrace our robot overlords. Bring on the singularity. I don't know if you are you into the singularity.
Yeah, I understand it. I
Well, you understand. I don't even want to talk about Bitcoin for a second. So do you are you a believer in the singularity?
well, I think that it's very likely that something like a singularity will come to pass. Whether
Well, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about the technological
Right,
singularity,
right.
not like a black hole.
no, right. It's the point where technological growth becomes asymptotic, and so you actually achieve like perfect technology at some point in the future, when when artificial intelligence starts eclipsing human intelligence. At that point, you start getting closer and closer to the singularity where you can maybe transcend, human
Transhumanism,
form, kind
yes.
of. Right? Yeah,
Do you believe in transhumanism?
I do.
Do you want to become transhuman?
I do. I don't
Do you-
have any intention of
so,
dying.
you're a firm believer in living long enough to live forever.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Well, there we go.
It has nothing to do with liberty, but
No, that it has
kinda
everything.
does.
You know why? Because
I know a lot of people in the community are very sometimes Luddites, and they don't.
yeah, they're technological Luddites. They're techies who hate tech.
Well,
and wait, what?
I mean, you shouldn't embrace technology just because it's technology. I mean, there's horrible technology in this world that we should never have developed, like nuclear weapons that can annihilate millions of people. That's not technology that I want to exist. I would be Luddite against that if I had an opportunity to, but
Or the Crocs.
or Crocs, yeah, any kind of technology that allows that disgusting rubber to be squirted out of a mold from some Chinese underground facility and mass produced for idiots in America. I don't think should
the new
should
rage
exist.
is the shoes with the toes, the running shoes with the toes. That's the
Right.
new rage now.
Right.
People swear by those. That they're like, I consider them like samurai shoes for runners now. But I never see one actually running with them.
Yeah, just looking pretentious with them.
Are they looking pretentious? There's
Yes, because it's
Yeah,
like
it's-
I'm so in touch with the earth that I gotta be like barefoot, but I can't be barefoot
but if-
because I'm too much of a fucking poser. So I have to wear these shitty.
why
It's not
why
a-
you hate on people that wear those shoes?
I don't know. I just hate. That's what I do.
Well, it's not about being closer to Earth. It's that wearing those shoes is supposed to simulate barefoot running,
Mm-hmm.
and so like the way that your foot strikes the ground when you run with those shoes, it's supposed to strike differently than when you wear like tennis shoes. So there's supposed to be some kind of technical advantage to them, but if you just see people walking around in them, getting at pizza parlors, and they're doing these things with these shoes, it's not like its purpose, That's just being pretentious.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
I own these shoes.
Well, maybe they just like that style.
Yes, there's a few people that are
Could be.
that in this community even that like that style, and they are clearly posers. But they shall
What
remain
are they?
unnamed.
Wait. What are they posing as?
They're posing as people who can run. That's just about it, you know?
They're giving off the impression that they care about running.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like a short, tubby little dude that clearly never like works it, and you're wearing these things, like, oh yeah, they're so great, so comfortable. It's like you're supposed to run with them. Sort of like someone with a big. Back when sport utility vehicles came out, when SUVs were supposed to be off-road vehicles, and everyone was wearing them, everyone was driving them, and never taking them out of the city. It's that whole thing.
Right.
The rise of the posers. Well,
Gotcha.
I know someone who isn't a poser, though. That's you right there.
How is he not a poser?
I'm no
Well,
poser.
Well, you're here for part of the liberty movement, right? You're here for the Free State Project. That's a long journey for a lot of people.
That's true.
And I mean, it's not just asking for the show. I actually don't know.
I hear you're a foreigner. Is that true?
I'm a foreigner.
Yeah.
Well, I came in from Florida.
Might as well be a foreigner.
Well,
That's like a
it's
third world
pretty-
country, if anything is, right?
Yeah, well, it's pretty different, pretty alien world, especially when you start getting down into Miami. You start getting into the capital of Latin America, which is in
So
Florida.
why did you leave the tropics and come to the frigid cold of New Hampshire?
Well, the prospect for liberty attracted me more than the overwhelming, weather and cold prevented me. So, I took sight of what I had in Florida, the political scene, the social scene, various opportunities I had there for work, and I assessed that with moving up here and trying to find work and trying to put roots down, and it just seemed 100% more attractive to me to come up here and to be a part of this community.
Now, why did it seem more attractive to you? Because a lot of people don't care about this community. Why? How were you born into liberty? Did you?
No,
how
not
did
at
you?
all.
How did you get to it? Where did you come from? Where
Oh
did
my
you
goodness. Okay, sure. So let's see. I was.
I'm sorry, the cat walking in front of the camera was awesome. Move it, Ash. Go.
I guess my parents aren't all that politically savvy. My mother, I would characterize as more kind of right-wing social conservative. She comes from Brazil, so she has experience with the Brazilian government in the 70s and the 80s, and I think that kind of distorts her ideas a little bit about being a little bit naive about what government can and can't do. My dad is kind of left. My stepdad is more libertarian-ish. So my kind of influence, my parents kind of comes from everywhere. But I first started getting involved in liberty and thinking about these issues when I was in high school, and I had an economics professor that had written his own textbook, and it passed all the various state and county, standard certification things it needed to. But it was a free market textbook. It quoted Hayek and Mises and Friedman and Thomas Sowell and all these kind of free market thinkers over and over again, and that got me really excited. And it was kind of a good, my teacher himself was some kind of limited government, classical liberal kind of guy, so he wasn't perfectly consistent with the ideas of liberty, of course. But I became, as I started reading, I read Henry Hazlitt, I read Mises, I read the Austrian economists, and as I read the Austrian economists, I found Rothbard and I found anarchy, and I started branching out into my college years in philosophy and history and so forth. So I fleshed out my understanding of the kind of disciplines of liberty.
How long have you been down at this level of the rabbit hole?
Oh my gosh, since I was 19.
How old are you?
So I guess 4 or 5 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess you're one of the more traditional, old school libertarian anarchist types who came from
4 years.
economic
4 years is old school here.
economic scholarship.
Yeah,
That's the more usual route. That's how I kind of went through it. I was Fun Mises was on the curriculum in college for me.
Oh wow, what
And so-
college did you go to?
George Wythe University in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was in Cedar City at the time.
Can I ask what the material was? Was it what class did you read it in? Or?
The course was a statesmanship course, and so they had a lot of great thinker type
Ah.
material. It was a very classical liberal kind of education,
Gotcha.
and so they got me young, right?
Right.
And so you get from there to these ideas, and then at some point, that turned into more than just a way of thinking wherever you are. It turned into a all-enveloping kind of passion that you needed to go someplace, namely here. How did that happen?
Oh, well, when you have these strong ideas, when you have these kind of radical perspectives, you want to take action with them.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal that you can't really stand idle and see injustice in the world without wanting to get up and take some sort of action to fix that. And when I graduated college and I got my bachelor's, I had a couple plans lined up for work. I had an idea to move down to Brazil to work with a family friend in his business for a while. He was the president of the Mises Institute in Brazil, so it would be an interesting.
Yeah, I've heard about them.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that's head by Elio Beltrão and some other good Brazilian libertarians there. That didn't work out. There wasn't an opportunity for me. then I ended up applying for a summer fellowship with the Mises Institute here in the States in Auburn.
You and me both, brother.
And I'd already been there a couple times for that university thing, and they knew me pretty well. But I guess when everything shook out, I guess they were looking for postgraduates, so I didn't end up getting selected. And my kind of options as far as work and what to do had kind of gone by the wayside at that point. And so I started looking at other alternatives. I was stuck in Florida for the time being. My options didn't work out. And rather than being stuck in Florida trying to find work in the state that's suffering from collapsing property values and that's like headed by, really lavish old senior citizen social conservatives running the whole state, that's very anti-libertarian in various ways, I thought that I would just try to find work and move where it was more amenable. And the Free State Project stuck out to me. A few friends of mine suggested it, and I looked it up, and I came to PorcFest last year. When I did, I fell in love with it, and I moved here.
That's funny because that story is almost exactly the same as mine. I was always in the Austrian tradition. I always wanted to work in either scholarly type stuff or in the think tank world.
Right.
And I was in the DC Beltwaytarian, as they call it, think tank
Yes,
world
boo.
for a while. Part of the Coctopus, working for Stato, all that stuff.
Right, of course, yeah.
And I ended up striking out again, looking for everything, and I finally went and I was sitting in Arizona again, another hot hellhole.
Right.
Trying to find an escape, and I was going through everything, and finally I went to the Atlas Foundation's list of every single free market or pro-liberty organization in the world, and they're just this big map, and I'm like, there we go, this one, that one, that one. I applied to a bunch of them, and about half of them were out of the country, right?
Right.
And so finally I was like, oh, there's the Free State Project. Oh, that's cool, and I really liked it, but I'm like, they don't look like they're hiring. So, and over a few months, I just started getting into that, and finally I'm like, look, I don't care if I find a position in my field. I just got to move out there.
Right,
And it
right.
sort of sounds like that's the same thing with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got my training, my formal training is in economics, and it was specifically understanding like monetary theory and capital theory and more kind of esoteric subjects. And I could find work in that field. I mean, 80% of economists work for the federal government or the Federal Reserve. So there's not a huge market for like a huge outside market for my skills or my training. And that's what I wanted to do. I started applying and going crazy looking for anything that I could put my talents to. And it didn't work out that way. I didn't find work as an economist. I found work with Fidelity a while ago, just as kind of a customer service representative. And then a while ago I left that and I ended up getting work with Lamassu, and that was much more interesting than Fidelity. But at no point have I really found anything that's been like a good use of my training.
Yeah, now, let's back up to that whole Lamassu thing for a second. Obviously, that has a lot to do with Bitcoin. Let me just say, where did your ideas about Bitcoin, where did you first hear about it and get excited about it?
I first heard about Bitcoin late 2012. And it was probably November or December 2012. And it was on some kind of like internet picture, some kind of like Reddit imager thing. It was like, what the hell is this? Some kind of Bitcoin. And it was like some kind of weird, like, it evoked thoughts from like the 90s of like new money, Bitcoins. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, with little pixelated spaces
Yeah,
of people dancing across
Yeah,
the
right.
screen.
And it just, I don't know. It just didn't seem anything like realistic that I would spend my time with. And then in February, March, the next coming 3 or 4 months, I started hearing about it more and more, and I started watching it for about 3 or 4 days, and it was climbing to about $15, $20, $25, and I said to myself, if it crosses 30, then I'm in. And of course, no doubt it did cross 30, and I spent about a week just diving into the literature, trying to understand Bitcoin as a legitimate topic of inquiry, as like a subject worth broaching. And I ended up reading the Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. I ended up reading a lot of other good, relevant crypto-anarchist works. There were other libertarians who were also into Bitcoin, so I ended up talking with them and getting their perspective for a while.
What do you think of libertarians that don't support Bitcoin?
I think they don't recognize the value proposition. I think that they're like how I was when someone's telling me about some new wacky alternative currency.
Well, I mean,
Like,
it's
well,
big
how is that different than silver? Why should I use this or that? And
But here's the thing: Bitcoin's been around for what 4 or 5 years now. I mean, pretty much in
Right.
regards to like libertarian circles,
Right.
Bitcoin is synonymous. Everyone knows what it is now. It's not like 2 or 3, 4 years ago, where even like 2 years ago when it was $30.
right,
Then that was a skeptical time. But when there's multiple startups all over the place in the Bitcoin world, and Bitcoin's talked about in mainstream media left and right, is like
Right.
it's a real thing now. I mean, it was a real thing back then, but it was still new. Like in the world of technology, a year is a decade.
I agree. I think a lot of people know of Bitcoin, but I think that as far as like comprehending the value proposition that it offers, it is still lost on so many people. Like,
Well, that was sort of
If you-
me too.
if you,
I was into the whole precious metal thing, and I was just looking for ways of technology to fully utilize in a way that we could go get off of fiat currency, yet still keep up with the modern times and requirements of currency. And so when I heard about Bitcoin, I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to try to make this gold stuff work, because it's been around and you can hold it in your hand and all that other stuff.
right.
And then it wasn't really until I moved here that I got completely on the Bitcoin bandwagon. The first Bitcoin I ever got was about, $12 worth paid for a pizza by this guy right over here when I was driving through Chicago.
Nice. And Rob, you bought a car with Bitcoin when
Yes,
you moved
I
up
did.
here, right?
I bought, that was the first thing. Well,
Tell
yeah.
us about that.
The first day I landed here, I guess within the first 24 hours, I landed here in Manchester, visited Area 23 and Aquil and all that jazz. Next
Right.
morning, drove out to Keene, went to the CAC, met up with Daryl, and dropped some Bitcoin on a car. What was really crazy is the bill of sale that he created was in Bitcoin. So it had like the QR code on it and the the wallet address and
Yeah,
everything
awesome.
like that. Yeah. So we don't know if that was the first car ever bought Bitcoin yet in New Hampshire, but
well, it's remarkable nonetheless.
oh yeah, I mean, everything I've tried to do here, I try to use Bitcoin. Like my bed I bought with Bitcoin, the car I try to like pay for services, like getting my car repaired or anything like that. I try to pay with Bitcoin as much as I can. Like I would love to get to the point where my entire finances are just used with Bitcoin.
Right.
Not because I really want I mean, no, honestly, I would like Bitcoin not to like skyrocket up and down in value. I would love it just to stabilize at one price and maybe gradually go up. But I don't even want that. I just want to. I love Bitcoin not because of like the increase in value and get rich quick. I don't care about that. I just like the fact that I'm not using their money.
Right.
And I'm not using the Federal Reserve's money, banks, governments. They don't control it. I love the fact that it's open source. It's the world's currency. I'm not trying to say like, one world power and blah blah. The one world government, one world currency.
We had a one world currency for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
In the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, it was called the international gold standard, and it worked out very well.
Yeah. Well, I'm not against the a world currency.
But a lot of people get the problem. The whole mistake is that they think that this is like ushering in some cashless society for the new world order.
It is a cashless society.
No, it's not. It's not. Bitcoin is digital cash. It fulfills cash. What people
True.
What they think cash means is literally the pieces of cotton that are green that are covered in germs and cocaine in your pocket. That people think that's cash, but they don't recognize that cash is like a fundamental concept that stretches beyond just the bills you rifle through your pocket. It's any kind of medium of exchange that you can spend irreversibly.
The biggest hang-up that I think some people have is the fact that they're afraid of like their money being like deleted or something like that because it's digital.
We've had hundreds of thousands and millions of years of experience with physical security.
Yeah.
Had about 40 years with security with a digital security.
That or they'll people make the argument like, well, yeah, but what if the internet went down? There wasn't any power. Like if the internet went down for a long period of time, the entire society of the planet would collapse upon itself. Our entire society is based on the internet.
Well,
like there's bigger problems
I
than not being able to use Bitcoin if the internet went down.
That's a good counter argument, but I also think that you're granting still too much to that argument.
What do you mean?
Because I just think that it's implausible, the scenario presented, that the internet just like goes down and that's like a final state of whatever happens. Like,
now, what is plausible?
the people, hold on just 1 minute. Like the internet is so valuable to the entire world and to so many human beings across this planet that if the internet went down, if Obama presses a kill switch, or if the ISPs all collude and they just cut off the world to the internet, like, people don't recognize, but it would be within 2 months, 2 or 3 months, we'd have reliable mesh networks connecting most of the people that live in like tight communities together. New internet forms would be created, not overnight certainly, but the incentive is massive, and it would also disconnect us from the centrally controlled internet servers that Washington has. So I mean, I'm just saying I wouldn't recognize that as like an Armageddon situation. Like if we lost the internet, if the lights went off, give it 2 months, give it 4 months, and we'll be back on using Bitcoin again, and it can't be stopped again.
Now, what I would think is the bigger concern is not so much a global shutdown, but a localized shutdown. For example, in a lot of despotic countries, when they're going through some kind of a revolution, the first thing government does is kill the internet to get rid of Twitter and all the other stuff to the outside world.
But see, that's really stupid. It really backfires on them, because a lot of these countries that are having protests, like Turkey and Libya and Pakistan and Yemen, all these countries that are protesting their governments, these countries have been oppressing and marginalizing their citizens over social and religious and political examples for hundreds of years, and they've been taking it. And suddenly you turn off Twitter, and Turkey gets up in arms, and they riot, and the people in Syria up in arms, and they rebel and they riot. So these are countries that have had hundreds of years of history of oppressing these people for religious and social reasons, and yet all of a sudden in the 21st century, Twitter, of all things, or Tumblr, or whatever it is, of all things, becomes so massively important that these people are literally willing to take to the streets and kick down police and take batons to the skull and all these things that they were never going to.
Speaking
for
of,
hundreds of years prior.
Did you guys see the video out of Albuquerque, New Mexico?
I didn't see the video.
Basically a bunch of protesters went to the city council, and basically city council was they were issuing a citizen's warrant for the police chief for his arrest. And the city council like abandoned like the city council, so like protesters took like the actual seats of the city council members and were like demanding change and whatnot.
I know that situation has been going from bad to very bad to worse. So the Albuquerque Police Department, I don't know all of them collectively, but there are certainly killers in that police department.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I believe it's the third person they've killed in 5 weeks, just last week or so. And for all these people that they've been killing, the famous video of the guy illegally camping, he gets shot in the back, the whole video of that on that hill there, that was Albuquerque. And what the people have done, there were these city council meetings that people were given time to like address their grievances and complain or whatever. 2 minutes. They were given 2 minutes to stand in front of the podium and talk to the city council, the civilian oversight of the police boards, all these people that were there to account for these murders. And they had 2 minutes to speak, and people were on their phones, and they weren't paying attention, and it was like, literally they were silenced, unable to speak, unable to have any kind of response. And you have vandalism, and you have spontaneous chaotic outbreaks that happen because they're silenced. You know what they did after that? After this kind of charade of not taking any accountability, people spray painted 3 Albuquerque Police Department stations with red paint. Just smeared it all over the buildings.
Yeah, I did
really
see that.
grotesque fashion. You know what that means? In any country you go to, you know what that means? It means that they're murderers. It means there's killers in there. It means that there's blood on their hands. And they've been closed down. There's police tape surrounding these buildings. They're not usable. They're crime scenes because of all the vandalism. And I'm not talking about some punk spray painting. Like, there are, like, red slashes all over these buildings.
It's amazing.
People are
it's
pissed.
amazing to see Americans actually standing up against, even it's just like normal, like, local government. Like, it's...
Don't forget, you're right. Like federal government is tyranny, but local government is tyranny too.
Yeah.
And the further steps they take, these people, these rebels or whatever, took in Albuquerque, people started scanning these pictures and inserting them in newspapers across the city, and they were. It was a single side of a picture, and it said, "Save a life, kill a cop." And in the middle of the picture, it was a police officer with a big thing, red, and the slash, the circle, and the slash. It literally said that, and they inserted them in all these newspapers they passed around, and they put them under doors. People spread this across the city. They stapled them to telephone poles. Like, this thing went fucking nuts.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to stop in Albuquerque. I think it's just a start because it's the most egregious one. But, like, the NYPD, Frankly,
My NYPD.
I love that hashtag.
My LAPD.
God, that was
frankly,
hilarious.
New York and L.A., but especially New York, the NYPD is I don't know, possibly worse than Albuquerque, just less publicized recently, or they've had more time to get used to that. And so, wouldn't it be wonderful to see New York with, again, the police force being a standing army, larger than many countries?
Well,
That's what
Bloomberg said, overtly one time. He made some kind of comment that he's got the largest army, his own. He's got a 10,000 man army, the NYPD. He's got the largest army, in other people in America, and that was kind of telling. He kind of said it tongue in cheek, but it's telling because it's right. It is his army.
Well, yeah, the police nowadays in the United States. I mean, almost every police station around the country is being militarized.
Do you know that there is a law, United States federal law, that goes back to the 19th century, shortly, I think before the Civil War, shortly after the Civil War, that made it illegal to use soldiers as domestic police officers?
Yes, I remember
Yeah,
that. I believe it was the whole Reconstruction thing.
Yeah, so after the Civil War then, right. And so you can't use soldiers to enforce police work. Well, so what do you do then? You just turn the police force into a standing army. And so it's not uncommon now to see...
They get Bearcats.
Yeah, they get Bearcats. They get $300,000 armored vehicles for hostage rescue that have gun ports and, treads that can't be blown out, and they're bomb-proof, and they're fireproof, and they, transform into Optimus Prime, and they, all these unnecessary things for protecting the peace.
That's because they want their own tanks.
Of course. Yeah. If you go and you look on YouTube for these, there's commercials that people advertise the Bearcat. What is it, Lenco? The company that makes them?
Lenco is the one that's the Lenco Bearcat.
There's a commercial.
Concord.
Yeah, you look for the Lenco Bearcat commercial, and they're showing off the capabilities of the tank and the people, the guns inside. They're playing AC/DC Thunderstruck as part of this commercial, and it's look how badass we are, Thunderstruck, and it's seeing these guys in this $300,000 armored vehicle shooting manly at nothing, and it's supposed to be this badass all this happening, and then it's join the reserve, or just join the whatever the army was.
Yeah, now
what the hell is that?
That's one thing I've noticed. There's a lot of propaganda on the part of the state in terms of, for example, military recruitment. It's all hardcore propaganda, all lies.
Of course, they're in
people.
the schools.
Yes. Now, that's the thing with the police. There's a lot of propaganda too about how the police are there to help us, how this and that, yada yada.
Heroes.
Yeah, all that stuff. Heroes, and then
Heroes all.
the thing is, all it takes though is one real life experience with the police, and then it all changes. There's even in New Hampshire, nice, safe, peaceful New Hampshire, a local person I know will remain unnamed, old upper middle class white lady, exactly the last person to distrust the cop. I've heard her say several different times the only good cop is a dead cop.
Wow.
Because she's had personal experiences with the police, with being on the receiving end of all that kind of violence. And then you believe you've been trained to believe that, heroes, protectors, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And then you feel it, and then you just can't. Your world's shattered.
Yeah.
Your entire world's shattered. Your entire perception is shattered. And thanks to the internet, all it takes is a YouTube video of that happening to make that everyone's personal experience.
Yeah, to make to have it kind of hit home for anyone else that's watching, where it's man, I'm not that different from that woman, or I was in that situation too, or that could have been me, or whatever. But I'll ask you, Joel. So last night when I was driving home, I got pulled over, and apparently I didn't signal when I was turning, and I pulled in front of a cop. And as soon as I saw that, I saw the lights behind me, and I was like, oh shit, all right.
Did you record this?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Because I wasn't prepared at the time with the camera and stuff.
Just your phone, man. Hit record. Put in the.
That's what I mean. It was. I don't know. It wasn't functioning quickly enough.
Okay.
I like to record police when I'm actually ready and prepared. Otherwise, I'll just improv and kind of do the best I can.
Yeah. Now,
regardless.
Just saying.
Anywho, continue.
You sort of have to train yourself mentally. Otherwise, when it happens, it's you just freak out. So
exactly. Well, I'm no stranger to filming police. I mean, my experience with the Laconia Police Department with Amanda's case. That was an interesting time, but I like to kind of pick the battle when I'm going to film. I don't like to be in a position where I was like, all right, time to film now.
Or use that as self-defense. What if they had done something and blamed you? What if they? I mean, seriously, they could have blamed you for something, but you wouldn't have been able to back it up without evidence. Like for me, like I've been pulled over here in New Hampshire, and the first thing I did is reach for my phone, hit record, and just put in like the, little cup container or whatnot, so it's pointing up so that they can, that it would be recorded with the interaction with the police officer.
Maybe we need a class at Area 23 for police preparedness that everyone goes through, and then just
moral of the story is you get pulled over, whip out your phone, hit record.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Anywho,
we derailed
I'm
your
sorry.
story. Go ahead.
You got pulled over.
Yeah, I got pulled over, and I wanted to kind of ask you, I guess rhetorically, or maybe not rhetorically, but when you're driving and you see the lights pull up in your rear view, the blue or the red, what's your immediate instinct? What's the immediate feeling you get when you see that?
Fuck.
Is that protection? Is that warm and fuzzy and comfort?
No.
Or is it immediate fear?
It's immediate fear, immediate paranoia.
Off.
You know what? It's to the point where when I'm driving at night and I see a car driving too close behind me, I can't see who it is. I get this like nervousness about if it's a cop or something. Sometimes they like change lanes just to make sure you're not following me or something. I mean, it's
right.
And this is not like someone. I've never been a drug dealer. I've never had drugs. I've never done anything illegal like that. But still, it's like, you're looking out for the road pirates. That's what you're doing.
Right. This is the closest thing we have today to highway robbery, and so the people.
Well, it's not the closest thing. It is highway robbery with the barrel of a gun.
Right.
Yo, pirate's life for me.
I mean, they crowd out private crime, so they monopolize the crime. It's not like there are legit private highwaymen out there that
here's
are doing
the thing.
the
If
same
they search
thing.
your car and you have a lot of cash on you, they will just take it.
Of course,
Yeah, that happened.
But
in
there's
Texas.
like multiple court cases for it.
It's called civil asset forfeiture. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. You have to prove that it was innocent money in the first place.
Yeah.
No, it's bullshit. But right, at least it's like the public crime. There aren't private highwaymen out there robbing people. All the crime is served for the public duty. It's all the police officers that are doing the crime.
Yeah, I mean, the government has co-opted all the criminal elements. They're just all under the same big umbrella now.
Right, that's the magnet for criminality, though. But I mean, I talk to people, and sometimes they have some pretensions about police being heroic or courageous or valuable or safeguarding people or upending, upholding social order or something like that. And I ask them fairly simple questions. How do you feel when you see the lights pull up immediately behind you in your rear view? Are you happy? Are you warm and fuzzy and comfortable? Do you feel like protected that now you have a guardian angel behind you? Or are you frantically going through 1,001 things in your mind that could happen because you recognize, maybe subconsciously, maybe you haven't brought it out fully, but you recognize this person behind you could literally do anything to you and get away with it. This person could kidnap you, put you in a car, take you somewhere else, rape you, shoot you in the head, and then report back to the police station, and they'll investigate themselves, but most likely he shot in self-defense.
Yeah, that's the one thing that.
So
the one thing that really it's hard for people that people don't really when they see the gun in the room, even though the cop's literally carrying one. Everyone recognizes that you can't just keep driving.
You can't.
You can't. You're driving. If you just
They will
don't
kill
see-
you if you keep driving.
Yeah, that's the end of the road. I mean, they'll block you off.
They'll do everything they can to get you off the road, and they will run after you, and they'll run you
Yes.
off the road and possibly kill you if you continue to resist.
So there's no innocent driver. If a cop, for any reason, even if he has no probable cause, no reason, even if later, if he had pulled you over and he had pulled you over for nothing, he could have gotten in trouble. Even if that were the case, if he turns on his lights, just because he wants to, right?
Yep.
He just turns on his lights, and you keep driving, you're dead. Period. That's just it. And no one can really escape that fact that even the friendliest, nicest, and I like to put out there are good cops out there. They're just like there's good people. There are people that sign up, to do good things. But the purpose they serve is evil. Even the best, nicest cop will have a hand in your death for absolutely nothing if you just keep driving. You don't even fight back. You just don't comply. You don't bend over.
Right, you just don't engage with what they're asking you to do, which is to stop and acquiesce to a search and acquiesce to questioning. If you don't even want to engage yourself in that process, you will probably die in trying to not engage in it.
Yeah, my biggest fear here, well, just in general, because I record everything I possibly can. I've had too many interactions with quote unquote law enforcement that I'd like, but they really hate cameras.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like they really hate cameras, and I don't understand why. Because if they're really if they are supplying a community service, don't they want to be recorded so that we can show people, like, look at this great service that the police are providing for the community?
No. They know it's not that. They don't even think it's that.
Then why are they working in there, man? Why? I don't understand this. Do police officers even, go with the fable that they're actually supplying a great community service anymore?
Probably.
I think they go with the alibi, but nothing more.
I think that they think they are doing a valuable community service that looks really ugly on the outside, and so when you film us and take it out of context, we don't really like that. It's not that what we're doing is bad. We're doing all great things, but it just looks ugly and forceful, out of context. When I'm beating you up to death on the sidewalk for no reason, that's just bad out of context. But everything else is part of the normal part of the job.
No, I know all of us here would like to have the market handle protection services, but that being said, what do you guys think of police stations around the country being, police officers being forced to wear cameras whenever they're working, like actually wear cameras on their body so that they are actually recording themselves in every interaction?
To the extent they don't sabotage.
Yeah, I know. They
which
can
they've been doing.
Yes, but I'm just saying in general, if that is
sure,
legit.
Yeah. I'd like to have any kind of advancement put on police officers that makes it harder for them to do their jobs. I'd like for police officers to handcuff themselves and try to do their job. I'd prefer that most. If they had to wear the handcuffs that they carry.
Yeah, it's a good step. It's probably better than nothing. But what I would rather have, I don't want them to have the control over the information.
Right.
I'd rather us do the filming. Because when we give it to them, for one thing, just like everything, if we abdicate any responsibility to the government, they take it and they fuck it up.
Right.
So I don't, and I know what's going to happen. If that happens, and this might be a controversial thing to say, but if it gets instated where all officers carry cameras, then what's going to happen is people are going to stop filming cops. And you know what happens then? The cops have control over all the evidence, all the information, and they can find ways of fucking with that. So I'm for, in general, having cameras on, I'd rather just push people to film cops instead.
I don't think the people who are filming cops on principle are going to stop filming them because the state is investigating itself for these things. I think that the people that you're talking about who are going to stop filming, because now they're filming, I don't think that's going to be a very big number. Like the people, I don't trust the state's camera equipment to adequately capture injustice. Like I would never take their word I guess I don't have to do my job anymore because they're going to do it.
In regards to filming, though, you do realize we were on step one of filming the police.
Oh yeah.
We talked about the whole, I brought up the whole singularity earlier. Like technology, we're seeing all these YouTube videos all the time, people filming the cops.
Right.
All right, which they should do. People should always film every interaction they have with police officers. Now, that being said, once more and more people wear Google Glass or some other equivalent to that, I mean, people are going to be wearing cameras on their bodies.
Or in their eyes.
Like, you're going to have, contacts that have cameras in it. You're going to be able to document your entire life via video. You're always going to be, we're going to get to the point where you're always, not just, mentally, but, literally recording your entire life. And everyone's going to be able to share any moment they have with police. Right now, it's something we literally have to pull out, some sort of piece of equipment out of our pocket, a smartphone or whatnot to record. But we're going to get to the point where that's not the case, where it's just part of their glasses or literally their contact lens in 5 or 10 years.
It'll be the default, right? I've thought for a while that this society is going to have a radical changing of what becomes private and what isn't private.
Yes.
So with Bitcoin and encryption and blockchain-like technology, you will be able to carve out a sphere of privacy on the internet. Absolutely, you will. You will be able to create and carve out your corner of information that nobody can look into and decrypt and take from you, whatever. On the other hand, because of the proliferation of these technologies and the ease of which they're going to be marketable to people and the low price they're going to be had and the the way that they'll affect society, people will be recording by default. I think it's just a given. I think that in 5 or 10 years, we'll be carrying technology, whether it's Google Glass, whether it's contact lens, whether it's brain chip, whether it's wearable, like a
watch
or
or a wrist or a ring
or
or
a
something
bracelet
like that.
or anything. I think that it's going to be by default recording sound and by default recording video from a certain angle.
Yes.
And so I think that it'll be like nothing at all to go back instant replay. What did he say 2 days ago? Oh, okay, hold on. My Google Glass only carries 9 months of data. Let me go back 2 days and let's bring up, that was around 2 o'clock, right? Okay, it'll be like a TiVo thing. It'll be like, oh, during those 10 minutes, he basically talked about this. Great, can you send that to me? Yeah, let me cut and I'll send it. I'll paste it and I'll send it to you.
That could be a good marketing slogan, by the way. Google Glass, TiVo your life.
Well, not like, I mean, that's also going to create a type of tourist life. The people that just go to concerts and record everything and take pictures, and they're not there. They're a tourist for their own life. They're like, oh, I'll just watch all of this later sometime when I'm older. And like, I kind of detest that. I don't think there's any point
it's
for
not
that.
going to be that. It's going to be there's so many people that live more interesting lives than others that people would want to watch. Like in all honesty, like we both kind of experience this a little bit. Like there's people that live vicariously through our posts and photos and videos and whatnot. I mean, you're gonna get to the point where people will, like just with reality TV, like people literally will create their own reality TV for other people.
No,
like there'll be people that watch and there'll be creators, and those creators will just be normal human beings. They're not going to be on a show or something like that. They just live a very interesting life compared to other people. Like I would actually love to create something like that in the FSP because living in this community doesn't exist anywhere else, and there's that showing that life. Now, I know that would step on a lot of people's toes because of privacy concerns here.
Of course.
But, I mean, that's going to happen anyways. That's not going to happen here. That's going to happen around the world.
Exactly. And I think that
it's
people
not
are going to...
something you can stop.
People are going to have to give up on the idea of general public privacy. Like the general idea that, like, if I step out in public, I can still expect some reservation of privacy. Like... When I go out in public, if I'm driving my car down the street, if I'm riding my bike, I don't expect to be recorded the entire time I do so if someone's following me or if there's someone's next to me, whatever. I don't expect it. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, right? But it's just not something that's factored into my psyche yet that I have to take into account when I step outside. If I meet another human being, I will be being recorded.
Yes.
I will be being my sound, my video, probably by default. And that's just going to be a social factor that we'll have to take into account when we're interacting with people. We'll have to be much more in our best behavior around everyone we meet. We'll have to be much more maintain our reputations because everything will be recorded.
Well, your reputation's everything anyways. I mean, especially here.
But it's going to be much more than that. It's going to be a much stronger weight in the future because I can still do things and get away with them now and not have people find out about them. But that's going to be more difficult in the future when recording is going to be default. And it'll be ubiquitous.
Yeah, now I'm going to take it in a more personal level. So how about recording in private, like say at a friend's house or something, where it's all still being recorded somehow, somewhere. Let me take it to the deeper level, no pun intended. Sex. How will that happen now that it all could be recorded at a moment's notice and published? And there's only so many steps you can take to cover that. I think once this becomes more
first off,
ubiquitous.
I think you should be having sex with someone you trust. That's not going to throw it up for the entire world to see.
Regardless, yeah, but that's asking too much.
That's asking too much to trust the person you're having sex with.
It's asking too much.
Who are you having sex with?
No, it's asking too much to say that the person you're going to sleep with, to spend a night with or whatever, you have to like vet them and find out what kind of trustworthiness criteria they have and all of this and all of that and all of this. I think much more likely is that our social perspectives on what's taboo and what's not will be radically different.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The idea of like I dated this girl and we dated for 3 years and then I dumped her and she took the video she had of us having sex and put it online and I can't stop her. That's like revenge porn or whatever. Like
yes.
She did that and I can't stop her. Well, fucking damn it, I can't stop her.
Do women do revenge porn? I thought that's more of a man thing.
I'm just saying, just as an example, like, what am I really going to do? Nothing. I can't do anything. So the choice is either I can be really angry and I can revenge porn her and I can do these things, or I can accept the fact that that part of my life, which I thought was private, is now going to be public. And that's going to require a fundamental revision of my own kind of psychological thought process about that. I can't take it back from the internet. Once something's on the internet, you can't take it away.
Yeah, now this could
So
be...
people are going to have to deal with this, and it's going to be more of a more normal and regular part of social living, I think. You know, people won't be able to get away with being Puritans anymore,
Yeah, now
for good or for bad.
This is going to be something that it could be... This could be like another multi-hour discussion. I'm just going to throw a teaser out to maybe discuss for 10 minutes or so. But how will that change the way we interact with each other if it's all possible to know each other, to witness each other's sexual activity? Like, it's one thing if there's some person who you may or may not find desirable, and then that's it, and you have to start trying to imagine things before you're, what happens if you stumble upon your neighbor's footage of your neighbor doing whatever?
I have an easy answer to this.
Hmm.
If you don't want to watch me have sex with someone, don't watch. Change the channel.
Exactly. I'm not saying if you don't want to. I'm saying what happens if you just never thought about it, and now you think about it, and now your neighbor, all of a sudden you're like, hey, so I saw those moves you're trying out on so-and-so a couple months ago. I think I could top that. What do you say, huh? You know what I'm saying? It could create...
I don't think it would be all that different in principle.
People talk anyways.
I don't think it'd be all that different in principle. Once it was like popular and out in the open, to be like, hey, I saw that video that went on your thing last month. Those were some cool moves. You could be talking about sex, or you could be talking about basketball. So once those videos are public and on the level playing field, I think that sex is going to become much more of a just open topic for people, because they'll literally have to deal with it. And so seeing your friend and it's like, oh man, I accidentally stumbled on his sex YouTube and I clicked out of it because I didn't want to see it. Well, you can watch it. You don't have to click out of it. You can still watch it. And it's up to you if you want to have things be weird with somebody else. You know, Joel, if you had in the future some kind of sex thing and it was on like the video on the internet, like how we're discussing a lot of, this thing might turn out. If I had stumbled on that, or if I had watched it inadvertently, or if I knew about it, that I could choose for that to let that be weird between us. Like, oh, I saw his genitalia. Or I could make it be a not big deal and be like, oh, yeah, he's a man and he's also got these parts that billions of us have, and he also engages in these activities billions of us do.
To be fair, I don't think
To
be fair, I don't think billions of us have this. But anyway, go on.
But I just don't see. I just don't have a problem addressing those types of future conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that certain people do have a problem with that, but they're going to have to deal with it, I think.
Now, beyond problems, how do you think that could change? I'm just going to throw out some speculations. I think one thing, it'll lead to, the destruction of sexual taboos almost entirely. Once people can't hide this anymore, or not as easily, and they get to see a wider range of people doing these things, like, how can you be homophobic if you realize that half the people, or whatever, a good number of people have swung both ways at some point in their life.
Right.
And then you're more used to that. And then also, instead of the whole guesswork and dating game and stuff, it could end up having people able to couple a lot easier and quicker. And, well, not necessarily quicker, but with a lot less guesswork. Maybe it could solve a lot of society's problems.
No, I think you're right. I think that, speaking of technological advancement and the singularity, I mean, we're seeing advancement in the kind of consumer end of some of these invisible services that didn't used to exist. So Rob and I had an interesting conversation about Tinder on the drive to Dunkin' Donuts today. And this is literally a service
I love
Tinder. Tinder rocks.
It didn't exist prior to, 5-10 years ago? And not just Tinder, but this whole thing of, like, getting on your smartphone or getting on your computer and plugging into this matrix database of all these criteria that you value, and it'll match you. It'll try to network and parse through all these variables that you give certain weights to, and I want a Christian Libra, and I want this, whatever it is.
I don't want a Christian Libra.
But it tries to do what you do in society normally, which is filter.
Well, one
And
thing.
it's going to keep getting better, and it's going to keep getting more precise, and it's going to require less effort on us. I mean, you said that
Well-
you're using hours to swipe left and right for these
Well,
people.
that's not just that. It's also the communication aspect of it
I
too.
see.
But what I'm saying is, come on, I'm talking about I can't believe I'm talking about Tinder on this podcast. But at any
I
rate,
can.
At any rate,
I can too.
the whole thing for me is like, first off, online dating used to be like a taboo thing, like, but everyone's on the internet now, and I'm sorry, I don't really want to go to a bar and meet a drunken woman or whatnot. And it's like, it's convenience factor. I'm on my lunch break, like, oh, like, what's going on here? Who's in my community
Of
that is
course.
available and stuff like that. And the fact that you can do it from the palm of your hand. Like, I don't need to go to, it's like going back to the MySpace days where you had to go home and go to your computer to say what you did today or something like that. It's like, literally, this is, my phone's in the palm of my hand.
How long ago was MySpace?
Oh God, 5 years ago?
Last year.
I used MySpace when I was in high school,
So did I.
right? My junior year of high school, senior year, I kind of started getting into Facebook and whatever. That was 4, 5, 6 years ago, right? So we went from MySpace dominating the social media landscape, whatever, destroying LiveJournal and Zynga and whatever, all the Friendster and the weird
Yeah.
stuff, right? 6 years ago, and now we have software and services that are outgrowths of what MySpace was, right? Like
Yes.
Facebook or LinkedIn or Diaspora, or, Liberty.me, and all of these things are social media and publishing networks, and they're capable to be done from your phone in seconds over 4G
Yeah.
with very little power anywhere you are geographically,
It's
right?
incredible.
The incredible advancements in the kind of customer service, just imagine you talk to someone 6 years ago or 7 years ago about MySpace, and they'll talk about, wow, this is such an amazing improvement over the previous live journals and stuff. We're really putting all the info together well, and you can see if they're single or taken. You can see what last Papa Roach song they listened to. You can see, the way that MySpace had it laid out. It was like
Yeah.
a one-stop shop for, like, I want to fucking stalk this person and find out whatever it is about them.
And now
That's
you can
what
stalk
do.
everyone.
But now it's so much more advanced. It's so much more amenable to what we as customers want. So if you think of the progress made 6 years ago from that to what we have now, where Facebook buys WhatsApp for $20 billion, and we have this gigantic social media economic engine turning. Like, it's just fascinating what you have when you have this kind of accelerating growth, and then you put Bitcoin on top of all of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course. But like, one thing that's kind of crazy for me is just the amount of time that it takes for you to communicate with the world. Like, I mean, going back to whole MySpace days, most people didn't have smartphones or anything like that. They literally had to go home and go to a desktop computer, and talk to people for an hour or something like that, and that's, or less. I don't know, whatever. I mean, now you literally have instant access to communicate to the world at your fingertips at any given time.
Yeah.
I mean, you have access to the entire world's knowledge with your thumb, or just speaking to your phone.
Right.
But I'm saying that time frame has gotten shortened. How much shorter is it going to get?
Yeah, now I'd
It's
just
gonna-
like to throw out a personal experience about that today. So I'm getting my car. I'm starting to drive to work.
And you're swiping on Tinder.
No, I didn't get to that until I got
He's
to work.
swerving in the lanes.
No. I did a little bit of that. But anyway, I get this message from this guy who noticed some post I put in some forum. I do a graphic design. I do the graphic apparel through this company called Spreadshirt, based out of Germany, that once I do the graphic designs and set up the whole online infrastructure, they just print it and get it done. Take care of the production. And I would been trying to get them to accept Bitcoin forever because, I want to make Bitcoin, right?
Right.
And some guy saw my post in some forum and says, hey, I've started this petition to get the CEO who's admitted that he's considering accepting Bitcoin. I'm starting this petition, and can you sign it and spread it around to get him to sign Bitcoin? I'm like, sure. And so I'm driving around there. Like, by the time I got to work and got in the changing room, by the time I changed in my work clothes and stuff, I'd already shared it across several different networks all over the place about, check out this petition, sign this because I really want to get paid in Bitcoin. And that would be like a big media operation. Stop the presses. Oh, they stop the presses. You write new stuff, print out a bunch of stuff, pay a bunch of people, distribute leaflets all over the place, and then it's like, no, in a few seconds on this thing, while I'm in my car, while I should be focusing on the road, but I'm not because screw you.
Right.
That's why we need self-driving cars from Google.
What do you mean we need them? We got them already.
Well, you need it.
Yeah. Well, see,
I do.
what's interesting is you start thinking about the road situation and how much of a terrible customer service experience it is.
I want my own flying
I
Google car.
I had this kind of habit that I like to give to
I
people.
want to have my own drone to ride across the horizon.
Or just get teleported somewhere.
Right. Well, I had this kind of habit that I like to instill with people sometimes, that like when they're in a situation, or when I'm in a situation where I'm just miserable, like it's just a place I just don't want to be, I think to myself, why? Why am I here, first of all, and why is it so miserable? Because I don't like to be in miserable places, and I don't like to subject myself to that.
It's the government's fault. Now, one little thing, because before we end up wrapping up, that we're talking about the whole end of privacy. The way of rephrasing that is the end of secrets.
The beginning of transparency.
Nice things don't hide in the dark. We're looking at the end of secrecy.
The end of
period.
Government. The end
So
of government.
What do you think of that?
I guess I don't agree, period. You'll still have corners that you can carve out on the internet where you can literally keep secrets. That's what encryption allows
Yes.
for us. That's what
I agree.
private data storage allows for. That's what all types of things allow for. What you won't have anymore is an expectation of privacy when you leave your house.
Well, my
Or
big
even-
thing, my
even when
big
you're in
thing
your
on
house,
my
maybe.
big thing on privacy is I don't, especially if I leave my home, I don't really care if someone's recording me and their own personal interactions with me. I just care the fact that there's a small group of people that have monopoly of force to come kidnap me at gunpoint, throw me in a cage,
Right.
has access to that information alone.
Right.
Yeah, now I like to say about the whole privacy thing, I've been sort of no stranger for it for a long time because, one, I've been on social media a long time, and two, I've been involved in high places like, I used to intern at the White House under George W. Bush, and I do know what it's like to feel a nudge on my shoulder and a Secret Service agent whisper in my ear, "I wouldn't say that if I were you." And I know what that feels like, and I know a lot of people keep personal and professional Facebook accounts, for example, separate. And I made the decision long ago to not do that, to have a one account. And what that's made me do is it's made me always think twice before I say anything, because it could all be out there. It's really changed my behavior in a way, and it's also made whatever I do put out there made me more comfortable with it. That way, well, I don't want to say that, and I was like, you know what? If someone's going to judge me for saying this, then I don't. If it's going to burn a professional bridge to say this, I don't want that bridge anyway, and just go out there. It's really changed my behavior in two different fronts for the better.
I mean, with both what we're doing right now, like obviously we're throwing our consciousness out there
Yeah, putting
for
ourselves
anyone.
out there.
We're putting ourselves out there. So obviously, if someone just has to Google us, a potential,
If
They
you-
know we're on Tinder.
If you Google me, if you Google my name on the Google machine,
The Google machine.
you'll bring up a lot of pretty incriminating anarchist literature and writings.
See, I'm in luck. You guys have very unique names. Mine's not. Like, there's a bunch of people on the internet that have my name that is very similar. I have a normal name.
Joel, just Google my name. See what the first hit or two is.
All right.
It might be something at the Mises
I'm
Institute or.
gonna hit the Google machine here real quick, as you called it. Dun, dun, dun,
Mathias von Guttenberg. Right? Am I pronouncing that right? Von Guttenberg.
Not really.
Gutenberg meaning
No?
good mountain.
Just Gutenberg is fine.
No, I
Mises-
was saying it like that. It sounds
The
evil.
first result. All right.
No, the second. We'll go to the second
I know.
result.
Hold on. The first result, Mises.org/Mathias von Guttenberg. The second result is on Google Plus. Ash the Studio Cat trying to seduce Mathias von Guttenberg.
The picture you took of him earlier
At the
today,
beginning of the
at the
show.
beginning of the show, is the second hit on his name on Google. That is absolutely
amazing.
Are
amazing.
you logged into your Google account?
Yes, it's the Rebel Love Show's account.
Well, I think it probably pulls from the Google Plus into the search.
Yes.
So I've done that too. I've made searches
Okay.
where
Yes.
I've written
Okay,
about
then
it.
maybe that makes
But
more sense.
I will say it is under the Rebel Love Show, and
then there's
me-
a bunch of pictures of you too.
yeah, there's a few, and me as a
No naked
Isn't-
ones yet.
my personal account, which is a different email, etc., from the Rebel Love Show's account, obviously shared the photo. But since I'm in the stream
Ah.
of this, it's still like one of the high things. And then the third is economicthought.net. And then there's a LinkedIn, Manchester, New Hampshire. Yeah, man, you come up right away. Let me check out me because it's not the same. All right, so the first one is Western Center for Journalism. Second and probably third and fourth are all different people from me.
Google mine. I won't even come up in the. I hope I don't come up in the beginning.
Bob Mathias, which I don't think.
Wikipedia thing. I think he's an athlete or something like that.
I don't see you anywhere.
I'm not. That's kind of a beauty of it. There I am, way down at the bottom there. Yeah.
Okay. So when we start Googling ourselves on air, I believe it's officially time to wrap up the show.
Yes, it is. You can find. Well, first I want to say thank you, Mathias, for being on the show. You're a great guest. It was amazing talking about privacy and Tinder and
especially
killing cops,
technology and politics and
all that fun.
No, it's
jazz.
always a good time. Yeah.
Yes. You can find we are a once a week broadcast from Manchester, New Hampshire. You can find all of our content at rebelloveshow.com, facebook.com/rebelloveshow. Please like, share, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and we're out. Peace.